So thank you for coming along today to the final session of the Plymouth Science Park Business Essentials webinar series. If you want to catch up on any of the other sessions, they are all on the Plymouth Science Park YouTube page, and there's some really helpful resources there covering lots of different topics. So do go and have a look there. Just if you just search Science Park, Plymouth Science Park in YouTube, then they should all pop up. And today we're joined by Chris Woodfield, who is running the Low Carbon Devon project, which is funded by the University of Plymouth and the European Regional Development Fund. And Chris is going to be talking about how businesses in the Southwest can do their bit to help tackle the climate emergency. So I'll hand you over to Chris now. If you've got any questions throughout the session, please drop them in the chat and I will be fielding them to Chris at the end. So enjoy, and thank you for joining us, Chris.
That's okay. Good morning. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Really lovely to be here on this beautiful day. So yeah, really excited to be here and talk to you over the next little bit of time. So yeah, I am Chris Woodfield from the Low Carbon Devon project, and I'm going to be talking about what that is and why it's important and how we can support you, or how we can help through the project. So I've just shared my screen. Does that come through okay? Yeah, cool. Awesome. So this beautiful building is the Sustainability Hub at the University of Plymouth campus, and that's where we would normally be based. So I'm part of the Low Carbon Devon team, and it's a University of Plymouth project. So as I said, I'll give you an overview of what that is and how we can support local businesses or local enterprises in Devon. And here we are this morning. So yeah, really excited to be here. But just before we do dive in, I just wanted to pause because it's a beautiful time of year at the moment. And we're almost halfway through the year. So for me, that's it's gone pretty quick. I don't know about you, but it's exciting, and it's a really exciting time to come as well, and a really exciting time in the year, but also in the time that we're in at the moment. So I just thought I'd just pause and mention that, because for me, taking action on the climate challenge is the most important thing we need to be doing right now. And I just wanted to get a gauge from you. So if you're in the audience and you can use the chat, I'd really love to just hear or see one or two words, or even three words to describe the type of world that you would like to live in 10 years time. So say 2030, if you've got three words to describe the type of world that you would like to live in 2030, and see what we can come up with. I like doing that at the start, just because it sets the scene in terms of the vision that we're trying to achieve, and that's very much the approach here that I'm trying to bring to Low Carbon Devon, is having a shared vision and then working towards that. So it'd be great to see what you can come up with. So rich in biodiversity, thank you. Zero waste, low pollution, reduced plastic usage, sustainable, organic, equal. So these are the types of things that are really important and really give hope, I think. And that's the way that, for me, that's the challenge, is trying to bring that hope to life. And hopefully the Low Carbon Devon project is one way we can do that here in Devon. So rich in nature, stable, safe, fair, brilliant, low energy usage. Awesome, well, thank you for that. And yeah, for me, the Low Carbon Devon project is one way we can put that into action today. So, as I said, we're based at the University of Plymouth. So we are based within something called the Sustainable Earth Institute, so the SEI. And that's an institute here at the university which is focused on research, collaboration, and impact. And we're to bring together a range of researchers across the university. So it's interdisciplinary in nature, and we're focusing on trying to facilitate a sustainable Earth. So it's not just in a silo, but we're trying to work across the university to implement change at all levels around sustainability. And we're just one project within that. So Low Carbon Devon is a European Regional Development funded project running until early 2023. So the end of next year, late 2022 in terms of delivery. So it's the next year and a half really of focusing on engagement here in Devon. And I just wanted to pose 2 questions to think about throughout the talk, which are focused on, for me, it's all about curiosity. If we're not curious, then how can we strive towards that vision? So what curious and courageous questions are you asking yourself this week? So I'd be curious to hear some answers to that, maybe at the end, but also if you could change one thing about what we do, what would it be and why? Again, I'd be really excited for you to have a think about that, and maybe we could hear some answers throughout or at the end as well. So what I'm going to do is give you a brief taster of why I think it's important to be working on climate change right now, what we can do to help, and what your next steps might be. And I'm going to highlight a few areas from Low Carbon Devon around how we can support you. But first of all, just a little bit about me. If anyone can guess where this is where I'm based, and this is where I've been living for almost 10 years now. It's not in Devon, but if you know what it is, do pop it in the chat. I'd be curious to see if anyone knows, but it's a beautiful little spot. And for me, this is where I studied. I've got a background in earth science and sustainability, and also working on small local grassroots projects. So this is a small town in Wales called Aberystwyth, and I did an MSc around sustainability and adaptation. Another beautiful spot in Wales called the Centre for Alternative Technology. So my background is around sustainability in a broad sense, and we cover things like energy efficiency in buildings, sustainable architecture, low carbon building design, but also nature-based solutions, ecosystem services. And my focus was on environmental psychology and behavior change. So a real broad mixture. And that's what the Low Carbon Devon project is also trying to encompass, that broad nature, but also highlight practical solution, so focus steps that we can take today. And also have a background in sort of startups and business engagement, help start up a not-for-profit focusing on food systems change, and involved in a few other grassroots environmental and social change focused community projects. And lastly, I've been working for an organisation which has taken people on outdoor adventures, and we're one of the first B Corps in Wales, a company called TYF Adventure, one of the first B Corps in the UK. And there's a real synergies here and metaphors about how we manage risk. So if all businesses managed climate change as a risk in the way that we managed risks in outdoor adventure, taking people kayaking and co-steering on the cliffs, what would that look like? So it's a really interesting taking what you can learn from nature in terms of resilience and risk and bring that into our businesses. So that's something we're exploring through TYF Adventure. But here in Plymouth, really excited to be here. And for me, Plymouth's a great mixing pot because it's quite a big city and it's got a rich sort of history, but it's also on the edge. And I think all the best stuff happens on the edge. So it's a really exciting place to be right now. But also working on climate change is really exciting. I think it's often viewed as a challenge, quite a daunting challenge. But I think for me, it's a really exciting challenge. So over the next couple of slides, I just want to show you why that is. Some of you may have seen this before. This is the donut economics model. And the planet's plotted against the planetary boundaries here. So this is some work done by Kate Raworth. As in the middle of the donut there, the light green is the sort of safe space, operating space for humanity. She talks about a regenerative and redistributive economy. And as you can see here, plotted against the planetary boundaries, we've got climate change, biodiversity loss, land conversion, nitrogen loading. All of these are in the red zone. And all of the other things are in the red zone on the opposite way. And what we're trying to do is focus on how can we get that middle ground. And this is a really nice framing, and it puts it into a holistic perspective around actually we're nowhere near where we need to be in terms of that safe middle ground, that ecological ceiling and social foundation. So it's a really nice framing to say, actually, we're doing some good stuff, but we've got a long way to go, and we need to be a lot bigger and bolder in what we're doing. And it's great that there's a local initiative in Devon called the Devon Donut, which some of you might be involved in or aware of, which is a great project. And if you don't know, if you want to be connected, do let me know, because I'm connected within that. But this is a really, really nice framing around the planetary boundaries, for me, which just sets a perfect indication of where we're at. And again, so more recently, the climate emergency has come, you can't sort of get away from it now in the media. It's really great. It's growing in interest. So I think in 2018, Bristol City Council, the first city council to declare a climate emergency. And since then, hundreds have followed. And wouldn't it be great if everyone on this call, all the business or enterprise you're involved in, had declared a climate emergency, or everyone in the science park itself, declared a climate emergency by the end of the year? What would that look like? And can we make that happen? And I'd be really curious to explore that further. And that's something we can support with through the Low Carbon Devon project. Again, we've got the Sustainable Development Goals. This year is the start of the decade of action towards meeting the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. So again, it's a really exciting challenge, and that's something we'll be exploring through the project. And then just last week, this is an article from last week, where it was the first time Shell had been taken to court, so the oil giant Shell. And it's believed to be one of the first times that they've been legally obliged, a company or business has been legally obliged in terms of the Paris Climate Accord or Paris Agreement. And they've been asked to cut their emissions by 45% by 2030. So these two articles are just from last week. So it's really making the headlines now, and we're really at a tipping point of what we can do to make a positive difference. Similarly, climate change, this was a survey done across 15,000 people from different countries that showed that climate change was the top challenge highlighted. And again, within the business world, this article is just press release from last week, looking at companies and businesses in the UK. So a third of the FTSE 100 companies declared a climate emergency or signed up to the United Nations Race to Zero campaign. But if we had all of those companies doing that by the end of this year, what difference would that make? Or everyone within Plymouth, for example, or a third of all businesses in Plymouth or Devon. And that's something we can support with or explore through the Low Carbon Devon project. And this is another article from last week highlighting the role of small businesses or SMEs in leading that change or leading that charge towards net zero. So the time really is now to be taking action. And we're here to support through the Low Carbon Devon project. And that's what we're about. So our focus is supporting SMEs, so small and medium-sized enterprises in Devon, to take action on climate change and take action around the low carbon economy. So we have 4 main areas within the project. And I'm just going to outline what those are and then how we can help. So the first project, or the first phase of the project, is around the sustainability hub. So the physical building on the university campus. So that's the building on the right, the outside. There's a few shots from the inside there. And the aim for this space is to be a partnership and collaborative space. So it's a space you could hold events or meetings to bring people together. So that's internal students or researchers, but it's also external partners or collaborators. If you want to hold a talk there or a film screening, the space is open to be used. Obviously, it's been difficult over the past year with COVID, and we haven't actually been in there. But looking ahead, hopefully we can really utilize this space. It's got a beautiful internal and external green wall. So it's really a living lab to put low carbon solutions into action, but also to bring people together to share stories, but to look at solutions and look at how we can collaborate. So that's the retrofit and refurb of the building into this low carbon building, and it recently received gold rating for its environmental credentials, and that's through from design and planning through to construction and implementation, and also occupant use. So it's a holistic measure of the low carbon credentials of the building. So I'd love to see you there at some point in the future. So yeah, watch this space in terms of being back in there. Another phase of the project is around not just that one building. As you can see, that building is quite small, and the university has quite a large number of buildings in a state. So it's around carbon reduction across the university. So we're doing other measures, solar photovoltaics on university buildings, LED lighting, for example. So there's a range of other things within the project that are being implemented, low carbon solutions and technologies, not just within that one building. And then one of the main focuses of the project is around research and innovation. So as well as myself, we have 4 other members of staff focused on research. And I'll go through each of these in turn after this, but they're focused on a specific area of research. And again, it's holistic in nature. It's related to the sustainability hub building itself, but their role is to carry out research whilst also engaging with Devon SMEs, and they're looking for opportunities to connect with local businesses to collaborate on research together and seeing how they can support through extended research collaborations. So if you have an idea or interest in one of those areas, it would be great to explore that further. So we've got the creative industries. My colleague Emma Whitaker is working on that, and her focus is around the creative industries in Devon, mapping out what the creative industries are doing to tackle the climate emergency, but also how can we bring that into other areas, and how can we engage and tell the story of how enterprises are engaging with the climate emergency. So it's a really exciting space. And then we've got the green rules. So my colleague Tom, you can see on the right there, he's working on the green wall itself, looking at how that's performing, how can we maximize the benefits, but also carrying out research in terms of insulation on the building, how it's helping insulating the building, but also effects on terms of air quality and lifestyle. So it's a really exciting project in terms of tackling climate change, air pollution, but also human health implications. So again, if you've got an interest in a green wall or green infrastructure, nature-based solutions, that can be an area we can support with. And then as my colleague Sepide, who's working on energy efficiency in buildings and occupant behavior. So she's already working with the science park and looking at data management, but she's really excited to look for other SMEs to work with around data and around energy efficiency in buildings, and how can she work with local companies. And then last but not least, there's my colleague Johnny, who's looking at power electronics. So he's working with one company based within the science park called Positive, who are focused on solar and solar efficiencies. So his focus is around power electronics, and has an interest in electrics and also sustainable transport. So if you've got any ideas around that, or you know of any connections, we'd like to hear more about how Johnny can support through research collaborations, then get in touch with me and we can organize a meeting. So those are the four broad areas. So we've got the creative industries, green walls, energy efficiency in buildings, occupant behavior, and then power electronics. And then sort of built alongside that or overlapping that, we have something called knowledge exchange, which is what I'm leading on. And the focus there is around events and workshops and something called the Low Carbon Devon Internship and Leadership Programme. So I'll just give you an overview of what that is, and again, how we can support. So the events we're developing, so our first event was held last month, and we're looking at putting on a series of practical solutions-focused workshops, but also events focused on inspiring ambition, discussion-focused events, exploring the sort of bold vision and ambition we need to rise to the climate challenge, combining that with solutions-focused workshops. So these are the things that we're going to be exploring throughout the project. So how do we declare a climate emergency? What are our next steps? Putting a carbon plan in place, carbon footprinting, carbon literacy, exploring the B Corp certification, what that is and how we can become a B Corp, and other initiatives related to this. So I mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals earlier. Again, that's another avenue we can explore with local businesses, how they can take action on them. So we're developing this now. We have some events coming up, which I'll tell you about at the end, but it's very much open to everyone. The focus is on local organisations in Devon, and we're also really keen to partner with other organisations who might be looking to do the same, or have expertise in these areas, that we can collaborate and work together to deliver these types of workshops and events. Moving on to the internship program. So that's a 3-month fully funded opportunity for a student or graduate to work on a low carbon project within your organisation. Is a student or graduate from the University of Plymouth. And alongside that practical 3 months of work placement or internship, we're delivering a series of workshops. So change leadership workshops throughout that period, focusing on what it means to be a good leader and upskilling the interns with personal and professional development. And this is running in a series of cohorts. So it's just about to launch the June cohort. It's just about to start next week. But I'm also looking ahead for the end of next year, at the end of this year, and the beginning of next year and summer next year as well. So if you're thinking an internship could be for you, I'd really love to chat with you further. It's a really unique and exciting opportunity in being fully funded, but also providing a skilled graduate who will develop and grow through the program as well. So it can be either a current student or recent graduate from the University of Plymouth. So just unpicking that a bit further, these are the types of questions we'll be exploring through the program. It's looking at how can local SMEs be at the forefront of change, particularly through the whole project, but homing in on the internships, for example. What do these low carbon practical solutions look like? Either projects, ideas, products, or new service development, and how can we support implement them locally? Through the internship program, we're exploring what it means to be a good leader and how can we take action, so reflecting the speed and scale of change which is required. but also exploring what are those leadership qualities, what are those attributes, competencies, and how can we explore those in a creative, collaborative, and empowering way. So those are the things we're going to be exploring throughout the project. One of them in particular is the B Corp movement. So this is using business as a force for good, if you haven't heard for this. So this is an initiative run in the UK by something called B Lab UK. And the B stands for benefit, so Benefit Corporation. And it's a certification standard looking at environmental and social credentials within businesses and looking at how they can be businesses as a force for good. So some well-known companies are B Corps. Patagonia, the outdoor and clothing brand, are a well-known B Corp. The Body Shop, for example. Ben & Jerry's also a B Corp. And there's also some UK-based ones. Here in Devon, we've got Greenheart Business Consulting, Riverford Organic Farmers, they recently become a B Corp. Number of other ones there, Finisterre, Ward Williams Associates. So a range of different sectors, range of different types of businesses, but they all have this thing in common. They're looking to use business as a force for good. And that's something we're looking to explore within the Low Carbon Devon project. So could your business become a B Corp? And how can we help you to do that? And that's what we're looking to do. So coming up at the end of June, I'm running a B Corp workshop, an introductory space, exploring how to become a B Corp. And then following up in the autumn, we'll be running a larger event focused on the B Corp as a whole and taking businesses through the B Corp process in autumn, focusing on SMEs, 12 to 15 SMEs, taking them through the process so they can be ready to apply to become a B Corp certified business. And this is a real growing movement of change. So if you're a local business and you're thinking this could be for you, really love to chat further with you. I mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals. There's also something related to B Corp, which is focused on the SDG Action Manager. And this is an online tool where you can track your progress and measure your progress against the Sustainable Development Goals. Again, I'm planning on delivering a workshop focused on this, outlining how you can not just know what the Sustainable Development Goals are and why they're important, but how you can take meaningful action on them. Just some useful tools to highlight. This is something called the B Climate Tools Base, really useful resource. There's a range of things on there about focusing on how to declare a climate emergency and then building on that first step. So really recommend checking that out if you aren't aware of it already. And we also have the SME Climate Hub. It's just a useful resource I thought I'd mention. And there's the UK Business Climate Hub as well. So some really nice stuff on there about aligning your business strategies and useful handy online guides to take you through the process. I just thought I'd mention. And also the Business Declares Network. So like I said, wouldn't it be amazing if every business in Plymouth, or even half of the businesses, a third of the businesses all declared a climate emergency? What would that look like? And that for me, that's the type of and level of ambition we need to be aiming for. You know, if we could get all of the businesses within the science park or the science park network to declare a climate emergency and put practical steps in place by the end of the year, really love to explore that further through the Low Carbon Devon project. And the Race to Zero campaign. So related to this, another useful resource is the United Nations Race to Zero campaign. So events in the pipeline, like I mentioned, I'm at the moment looking at delivering, other than the B Corp, a range of these events, looking at how do we become a carbon neutral business, carbon footprinting, carbon literacy, exploring leadership. What is the leadership we need in times of emergency or in times of uncertainty? and how can we rise to the challenge at hand. So these are the types of things I'm working on at the moment, as well as the internship program. So I'm just going to highlight where we're at with regards to the Low Carbon Devon internship and leadership program, which is called Future Shift. We're just about to launch the program for the June cohort, so I'll tell you a bit more about that in a second. But as I said earlier, it's a 3-month opportunity. It's available for a current student or recent graduate. Embedded within the program are these change leadership workshops, and it's run in a series of cohorts. And you might be thinking that's great, but what would the intern actually do? So the intern could be doing one of the things I've mentioned already, could be helping you become a B Corp or become a carbon neutral certified business, for example. And it's broadly focused on supporting you on something you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So it could be working on a specific low carbon project or an idea your business would like to deliver, but doesn't have the capacity to. Or it could be to help to develop a new product that you're working on, or a new service that you'd like to develop, but again, don't have the resources or don't have the expertise within your business or enterprise. So, and that's where we can come in and put together that project and then find a student or graduate to help deliver it. And again, it's really unique in that we can fund the salary of the intern for the 3-month period. So for me, that's super exciting. And yeah, I'd love to chat with anyone who's interested in that, because it's this practical work experience opportunity combined with the leadership development. And that leadership development is very much focused on upskilling our interns with a holistic skill set that they can go out into the world and be future fit and ready to tackle real world problems. So it's drawing on things like regenerative leadership. It's drawing on things like compassion, creativity, collaboration, and connection. Principles highlighted here from the All We Can Save project, which is a book as well. And that's looking at what is the type of leadership we need to tackle the climate emergency and climate challenge. And it's focusing on leadership which is more equal and diverse, but also focused on courage and connection and collaboration. So these are the types of things we'll be exploring through the internship program. You may have heard of ULab. Again, we'll be touching upon this. So it's focused on transformational leadership and the theory U, or ULab. If you haven't explored this, it's worth recommending checking it out. It's from the Sloan School of Management at MIT in the US. And there's a range of ULab courses online, or Theory U courses online you can explore. So it's looking at leadership in today's world, leadership in times of disruption, and leadership or leading from the emerging future. So these are the types of things we'll be touching upon within the internship program workshops, which goes alongside their practical project with a local company. And the framing for that is something called the Plymouth Compass. And it has these 4 specific areas. So this is a tool which has been developed at the University of Plymouth. It's called the Plymouth Compass over the past couple of years. And it's looking at this holistic nature of when our students leave university, what do we want them to embody? What attributes or qualities or competencies would we like them to have? And this is the holistic framing we're using for this. And it's got these 4 specific areas where the other stuff I've mentioned will feed into this framing. And that's the approach for the internship program. So it's looking at things like systems thinking, change leadership, sustainability awareness, teamwork and collaboration, effective communication, listening and speaking, how do we communicate with each other, but also around resilience and how do we become resilient and thriving individuals, and then also around that critical thinking and creativity. So it's a really really holistic program, which will equip our students and graduates to be future fit change makers. And one thing that really hit home for me recently, I came across this table, which really shows the importance of how we communicate and how we learn to communicate. So on the left here we have mode of communication, years of formal training within that. So how many years we've spent, the average adult in school, for example, learning how to write, learning how to read or speak or listen. And then time we use that in everyday life. And as you can see here, listening at the bottom, we very rarely learn how to listen with empathy or listen with compassion. But actually we mostly use listening more than the other forms of communication. So it just hits home how important learning these skills and how learning to be an effective communicator is really essential in facilitating change. And just to finish up on that aspect, this is a picture from a place in Spain called Santiago de la Compostela. It's the cathedral. And something else we'll be exploring through the internship program is this notion of cathedral thinking, or long-term thinking, or seven-generation thinking. Cathedral thinking is called the cathedral thinking because the people that built cathedrals would very rarely see the completion of them. So it's this notion of how do we think for the long term, and how do we think and act today when we might not actually see the outcome. And it's a really important skill set that we're looking to encompass within the program. So the current internships we have, which are starting next week, so just to give you an idea of the types of things people are working on. So we're working with 6 organizations. So it's the first pilot round. And as you can see, there's things around environmental management and environmental impact, but there's also things around communication and also data. So it can be a mixture of projects, but the focus has to be either the business itself is working within the low carbon economy, or the project is working within the low carbon economy. So I'd be really excited to explore further with any businesses or enterprises around a project that you've got in mind, and if we can make that happen or bring that to life. So, and also it's a range of organizations. You could be a private limited company, it could be a community interest company or a community energy company or a not-for-profit. There's a whole host of different types of opportunities. And that's what I'm working on now. So I'm currently looking for 20 Devon SMEs for the next round. So the internship program in October. So it's starting October, November, December. And if you know of a business or enterprise, really love to chat with you further and make that happen. So we'll be looking to advertise those opportunities to students and graduates in August. So I'm really looking now to develop those projects and get them up and running and finalized. So just before we wrap up, a few other things I wanted to mention. For me, it's really important to bring a sense of nature connection into our work. This is an organization that I've been inspired by. They're a B Corp certified. They're called Vivo Barefoot, and their notion is on, if you can't feel the ground, then how can we protect it? And they've got a really interesting podcast series called Sustain This, which I'd recommend chatting out, where they explore B Corp, but also a whole host of other things related to regenerative business. And they make some wonderful shoes that mimic barefoot, so that they're minimalist barefoot shoes. And they make a really important point about it's not just about doing the same things we're doing, but a little bit better. Or it's not just about doing less harm, but it's actually about reimagining revisioning and then putting into practice that different way of doing things. I think that's a really important point to make, because doing less harm is good, and it might be the first step, but we need to be bolder and more ambitious with what we actually do and how we do it. Another really interesting initiative, it'd be great if half the businesses in Devon become 1% for the planet businesses. I was chatting to a company called Dewstone, based in Devon in Princetown, and they're one of the few 1% for the planet businesses in Devon. And we were talking about, wouldn't it be great if every business in Devon became a 1% for the planet business? So that's something else to sign up to or explore further, as well as this notion of thinking for the long term. So really interesting book here I've just started reading around how do we become good ancestors, and really worth checking that out. How do we think long term in a short term world? And one amazing example of that I just thought I'd share is the company Good Energy. I'm sure we've all heard of, and hopefully we've all signed up to renewable energy supplier. They're looking to create a good futures board. So this is one practical step that they're taking as a business to engage young people in their decision making. So they're looking for board members, but who are school age. So it's a really innovative way of how do we bring that future generations aspect into their day-to-day. I just thought I'd highlight that as a really nice example. As well as a sample from Wales. So Wales are the only country to have a Future Generations Commissioner and a Wellbeing for Future Generations Act, who are pioneering this space. And how can we do business, but do it in a way where we think for the long term, but not just think for the long term, but act for the long term as well. So really amazing example. I mean, wouldn't it be great if every business had a Future Generations Officer or a Future Generation Project Manager? What would that look like? And just lastly, for me, it's also about not just what we do, but how we do it and how we talk about it. And we need to change the way we frame the climate emergency or the climate crisis into a climate challenge. And that's what I'm really excited to explore. And one way of doing that is looking at another amazing organization called Positive.News. So I'd love to see this in every office or in every cafe or restaurant across Devon or Plymouth. And also this work done by out of the University of York called Dreams of a Low Carbon Future. It's how we can, like I said at the start, how we can imagine that more beautiful world and then put it into action through our actions. And lastly, just a reminder to remember to get outside. I think it can be quite difficult sometimes if you're passionate about something, but to find that balance. And for me, it's almost finished, but I've been collecting loads of wild garlic recently, but just having that time out enables more to be done. So for me, it's about doing less, which enables me to do more. And coming up from us, the next step for you could be to sign up to our online conference, which is coming up at the end of June, which is free to attend. We're running a series of workshops and talks throughout 2 days. I'll be running a workshop on the Internships program and also a workshop on the B Corp initiative and how to become a B Corp. But there's a range of other things happening as well. We've got speakers from across the world coming, a range of different events within that, keynote speeches, practical workshops. So really encourage you to check that out, to sign up and to look at the program. So that's a really handy next step. And also just to get in touch with me. Really keen to chat to people who are interested. This is a summary of what I've talked about and how we can potentially support you. but hopefully this is just the start of a conversation, and really excited to continue discussing further. Those questions I asked you at the start, would really love to hear from people around what is that one thing you would change, and what is it and why, and then how we can put that into practice. So I'd be really keen to continue that conversation with people, whether it's now or another time. And also, I don't know if this last image here really puts it into perspective. You know, this is a real image. It's not a photoshopped image. It's image taken from Oregon in the USA of people playing golf. And there's not that, yeah, I don't want to offend anyone if you play golf, but there's some people playing golf, and there's a massive fire going on in the background. And that's what we're trying to move away from through the project, is enable this sense of now is the time to take action, to deepen that connection with what we're doing, to become more aware, to become more awake, to sort of facilitate that curiosity, and then to put that into action. So just to finish, when was the last time you felt alive or inspired? What were you doing? And how can you translate that feeling into collaborative action to tackle the climate challenge? And most importantly, maybe how can we support you do that? So I'd be really keen to discuss that further, whether it's via email or on the phone, and also what are your next steps? So thank you for listening, and super happy to take any questions or explore further with you if we set up a call. There's my number. That's my work phone, so happy to chat on the phone or arrange an online meeting, and hopefully we can actually meet in person sometime. So yeah, thank you, and happy to take any questions.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much, Chris. I think everyone's going to be feeling really inspired, and there were so many practical steps that people can take and opportunities for them to kind of get involved with different things that you're running. So thank you so much. I think maybe one of the questions that's come up is, you know, what really is the role of small and medium-sized businesses? Can they really make a difference tackling this huge crisis that's going on?
Yeah, yeah, good question. I think for me, it's yes, definitely. I think, yeah, small businesses are a really exciting space because they can move quickly, they can make decisions. You know, I work in a university, for example, or anyone else that works in the public sector might be frustrated sometimes about how slow things are and how long it takes to make decisions. It has to go through various layers and hierarchies. But I think smaller companies and businesses can be very agile and can be very quick to make bold changes. And I think that's what we need. We need that sense of urgency, but which is thought-provoking, which isn't just blind actions, but which is thoughtful doing. And SMEs or small businesses or enterprises can really operate in that space. And that's a really exciting space to be in. And they can then push that forward and ask the questions of larger businesses or the local council or the university. They can sort of set the agenda and push that up from the bottom. So it's that they're really in an exciting space to do that, I think, which is a really exciting space to be in, to sort of that agile nature is really advantageous. And I think it's that which can then other people will join along with that. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. Certainly quite inspiring and thought-provoking stuff. So we've had another question which answers another one that I had actually, which was that there is so much information there. That's brilliant. And Tim has asked whether these slides will be available. So in answer to that from myself, yes, this recording will be going on YouTube. So Anna will be sending a link around, and I'll liaise with you, Chris, about whether we can share the slides via email or something as well.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, really happy to do that.
Brilliant. One other question was, in regard to becoming a B Corp, what are kind of the advantages of a business doing that?
Yeah, I think B Corp is really an exciting space at the moment because it's growing. The momentum is growing exponentially, particularly in the UK. I think the UK has one of the fastest growing B Corp movements around the world. So there's loads of advantages. I think one of them is being part of that movement for change and having access to that network. I mean, B Corp, it's a certification of, say, it's a stamp, a bit like fair trade mark, but it's a lot more holistic than that. So you go through a questionnaire, a series of questions that assesses your business management, your operations, your purpose, what you do, but also why you do it as a business. And then you get a certification. You have to get over a certain number to get over 80, and you become a B Corp. And the certification process is really rigorous, and that's why it's so well sought after. But it's also is why people are aiming to do it, because it's recognized. It's not just one of these things you might quickly do and get a stamp. It's actually, it takes quite a while to go through that process. So it's got that credibility. So it's being part of that movement for change, that credibility that you are doing the right thing. But it's also a roadmap, it's the start of a journey. So it can highlight what you're doing well, but it can also highlight what you're not doing and identify gaps for you to work on. So it's almost the start of a journey. And you also recertify every couple of years. So I think it's every 3 years. So it's not just something you get and that's that. It's something you build upon. So it's a combination of those things, being part of something, having that credibility, but also it's a helpful tool if you're on it to start your journey, or you might be midway through your journey. It would still be a helpful tool to your environmental and social performance.
Brilliant, thank you. And Tim has also asked, how do you recommend that businesses encourage their customers to keep them honest and forward thinking in the right way?
I'm just looking at that as well in the chat. Thanks, Tim. How do we engage our customers to keep us honest, forward thinking in the right way? I think, one of those examples I showed was the good energy example of inviting school children to be on their board, future board, or Good Futures Board, I think it was called. I think, being more transparent, and being open and transparent, engaging people, that it can be difficult to do, as there's lots of things happening at the moment and there's lots of information out there. But I think that's one of the main things. Being transparent, being open and engaging in that dialogue, and also having a clear vision and purpose. So understanding why you do what you do rather than actually what you do, I think is really important. And that's one of the things where, again, related to the B Corp, where it sort of stands out, because there's a clear vision there of moving to an economy, a low carbon economy, which puts people and planet first. So yes, you can make profit, which is great, but also it's not just about profit, it's about people and planet, which is more important than that. So I think that open transparency and sense of vision, which is communicated effectively, which people can take hold of, and people can really, it lights them up as well. So I think a few things related to that.
Brilliant, that's great. And you may have seen, as you're in the chat, another question's come in regarding interns and kind of their payment. Can they be paid on a contract, self-employed basis?
It's something we're exploring. I don't think so, because they're a student or potentially a graduate, student or graduate. Ideally, they would need to be employed by the organisation, the host organisation. to make that process easier. But it's something we're exploring, so it's not a yes or no. I think ideally it would be not on a self-employed. It would be that the business would employ them, because then they'd have ownership of the sort of the national insurance and the tax and things like that. So in an ideal world, it would be they'd become an employee of the business for those 3 months. So that would be the ideal situation, but I can pick that up further with Hayden.
Brilliant. And we're coming up towards the end of time, so I'm going to finish by asking, what one piece of advice would you give to everyone that's listened in today? What should be their next step and thing to do?
Yeah, I guess there's so many. Come to our workshop at the end, our event at the end of June. I think for me, it's just spend more time outside than inside, and the rest will take care of itself. Yeah, so come to our event, have a clear vision of why you're doing what you're doing, but also remember that, yeah, most people are most effective and happier when they have a positive work-life balance and a sort of bring the inspiration and that awe and wonder from the natural world. How can we bring that into our workplaces? So I guess my one piece of advice would be to explore that question and find an answer for it. So yeah, how can we bring that awe and wonder from the natural beauty of the world into our work and make it more positive for people and planet?
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time this morning. Thank you everyone for attending and your questions. As I say, this recording will be up on YouTube, and we'll also circulate the slides via email. So thank you again, Chris, and thank you for joining everyone.
It's all right. Thank you.